I rarely met people who were not creative. They just forgot. They just forgot that they are. But if they're relevant and people are happy because you're solving a problem they have and they're actually ready to pay, it means you actually have something.
And you get those types of results. So that's one of my favorite growth hacks these days. You're watching Next Big Wave, the podcast for founders by founders in Southeast Asia. In this episode, we're going to talk about founder journeys, growth strategies, and much more. Just to help me out, if you could like and subscribe, it would be awesome. And let's get into the episode. On today's episode of Next Big Wave, I'm joined by Aurélien Vasinis, a fellow French founder currently living in Hong Kong. Aurélien's already worked on several startups and currently working on Kuration AI, which, if I'm allowed to call it that way, is a clay killer. Aurélien, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Tim, for having me.
Yeah, I'm super excited. So you and I, we've already been talking a lot. You're part of my program, Next Big Wave, and you have a lot of exciting stuff. Every time we talk, I feel like we come up with new great ideas. So it's super exciting to have you on the show. What I'm particularly interested in talking with you is about your founder journey, but also growth in general, because you have a background in growth. You have a lot of great growth hacking ideas, and I think we can go deep in the rabbit hole about this stuff. So, let's get started by knowing you a little bit better. Can you tell us about your background? I know you're from France, but let's get from how you started there to where you are in Hong Kong and your journey as a founder.
Cool. So the journey started 10 years ago. Came to Hong Kong as an exchange student. At that time, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I studied political science, Sciences Po, EOP, Strasbourg. Third year, you have to go abroad. I picked Hong Kong. Really loved it, and I decided to stay. And I thought the best way to stay somewhere is to start a business. Might be counterintuitive, but I thought maybe it's could be a good way to really stay. The first business I started was the Uber of research. So the idea was, if you want to get information, market research done, it's not necessarily rocket science, but it's very, very time consuming. And the problem is, you go on Upwork or Fiverr, you might end up with 1,000 applicants, and then you have an HR problem, which is which one to pick, right? So that was the idea. Basically, we picked a freelancer for you. We had a marketplace, was BrandSfeed, we raised some money. Was doing pretty well, and then COVID happened. Shit hit the fan. Lost some revenue, but kind of tried to grow too quickly, and it was the first business. So it was usually when you have your first startup is rarely the Mona Lisa, right? I think any entrepreneur will agree with that. Is the first business you start usually is when you learn the most, but it's rarely the most successful venture, let's say. And then I basically joined a company called Link, and I was doing kind of growth in that company. I was doing a lot of things. It was part of the CEO office, so work with the CEO directly. And the idea was to basically build new products, but the idea was to actually use those products as a growth channel. So I did a few things there, but kind of reinforced the idea in myself that there's something to do with my current venture, like Kuration, is that when you try to do growth, it always starts with research. And at BrandSfeed, the first thing I realized as well is that a lot of people are in research. They want research done, and it's very time consuming. And usually it's done by interns, or it's not done at all. And so people trying to activate some channels and it's not working. And 99% of the time is because the research was not done, or they thought it was done, but was not done properly.
Okay. And that's how you landed on Kuration, basically.
Yes. Actually, if you look at my background and if I portray what I've done in the past 6-7 years, it always comes down to the same field, which is, I'll call it the information sphere. So we have access to a lot of information with the internet. You've got a lot of different providers, and all the different products that I tried to launch in the past few years, it's always the same idea: is how to help people navigate this ecosystem, which is thriving a lot, but very noisy. A lot of providers, a lot of vendors. You don't necessarily know which one to pick. And I've been in the space for many years, and even myself, it's very overwhelming. You've got way too many tools, and you a lot of them actually overlaps, and none of them actually help you really pick the right channel to acquire the data you need.
Yeah, so I think when we first met, you told me about sort of a growth hack slash MVP that you created for Kuration, and you were sort of downloading and isolating all the companies that offered remote work. Can you talk to us about that a little?
So I've always been a big fan of remote work. My first company was remote, and all my experience before were actually remote. And I know from a fact that there are a very large ecosystem of companies that develop softwares and services, products just for remote companies. And if you go to Sales Navigator or even Zoom Info, any of those very large database providers, one of the data point they don't have is actually remote work.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I decided to do to test my assumption is I put together an algo using GPT-3 at that time, 3.5 at that time. And the idea was to basically build a tool that can basically help you identify whether or not the company is remote or not. And by doing that, I actually put together what I said is the largest database of remote companies.
Mm-hmm.
And then I reach out to people saying, hey, I have this large database of remote companies. I can tell you if a company is remote or not. And then, because the campaign was very targeted, the response rate was very high. Because I actually come up with a problem they all have. If you sell to remote companies, you need a way to identify if that particular company is remote, right? Because
Right.
if they're not, no point reaching out to them, right? So if you were selling like digital insurance for digital nomad, if you were selling virtual office software conferencing tool, if you are selling IT procurement, so basically IT solutions for distributed teams, if you are selling retreat, offsite event, of course you want to know if which company are remote, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the demand was so high. I mean, the positive feedback was pretty high. So I said, okay, I have something here. But I also realized that all those companies they wanted more, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just one data point. You always want multiple data point that actually help you identify if a company match your ICP or a person match your ICP. So you're always in the need of more than one data point, to help. And so that's why I think it's very powerful to have an engine that can create all the data point that you dreamed of.
Yeah, I agree. But what I'm trying to get to, I guess, is did you build that as an end product? You just had an idea that, hey, I want to service this like need for access to remote company data, or was this a way for you to validate the bigger idea, which was curation, like which came first in your mind at that point?
Well, the idea of curation has been in my mind for many, many years, even at Brunsfield,
Okay.
right? But the
Okay.
technology was not available yet to really build. We were doing that manually, right? So
Mm-hmm.
no AI. The the who is remote because that was the name of the product. It was more like an MVP trying to validate. But
Mm-hmm.
if the market and the niche was big enough, I think I could have stick with that. But I think actually the market is not that big, right? So you have like about 200 companies that are really targeting remote companies.
Mm-hmm.
But it's probably not enough. And actually also seen some companies that are developing their own tools internally,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because it's not
Yeah,
it's not really rocket science, right? You can come up with your own,
for
especially if
sure,
you have
for sure.
engineers.
Yeah, I was, obviously Peter Levels, right?
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Got it, got it. Yeah, you know him, right? So he built a job board for remote jobs, Remote OK, I believe it's called. I think he's generating like some good revenue from that. Obviously, he has a lot of great stuff going on, but was the idea something similar for you to have a marketplace of all the companies that are doing remote so that they could, like sellers could meet each other, whatever?
No, 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 no. Marketplace. I mean, job board for remote. You already have like so many. So it's quite crowded and
Mm-hmm.
a lot of copycat. So no, at no point I wanted to be a job board to build a job board. The idea was
Mm-hmm.
to help people identify companies that are remote. And actually, I scrapped all the job boards. Right. So I have like the whole list of job board because it's actually one of the signal. Right. If you
For
post
sure.
jobs on job board exclusively targeting remote workers, then you're more likely to be a remote company. Yeah.
So what's your proxy like? It's job boards, I guess, because you mentioned LinkedIn doesn't allow that. You could argue that similarly they do offer like the ability to have remote and hybrid jobs, so you could also scrape LinkedIn, but they just don't offer it like natively, I guess.
So it's funny because LinkedIn does show you if a company is remote, right? They do. If you go on the landing page of a company, you will see there's a data point. You can actually set your remote work policy, but it's
Mm-hmm.
not a filter in Sales Navigator. So a lot of the
Right.
data you have access to in the about page or inside page is not available as a filter, and that's the problem.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's the problem.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, you and I have talked about a few growth hacks using LinkedIn's data that is not technically available. So there's definitely a lot we can do there. Yeah. So yeah, yeah, yeah. We can talk about it in a minute. I don't know if we want to keep that one a secret or we want to publicly share, but I think it's one of the coolest things ever. I've been talking about it for a while with people in the group and outside of the group. But for anyone who doesn't really know curation and might not be familiar with Clay, can you kind of give us the vision? And I know you're still early stage, but when you talk about like what it's supposed to be able to do, like that's I think super interesting for people.
So to put it simply, if you try to do, I mean, if you're in sales, B2B sales, marketing, um, the first step is always building a list, right? A list of leads. And you go through those traditional tools, ZoomInfo, Lucia, Apollo, Sales Navigator. The list is very long. They are great to put a long list. They have 20, 30 different data points. But then you hit a wall because you're not exactly finding what you want. You have more data point or filters that you would love to have to use to get that list, a perfect list of accounts or people that really match your ICP. And basically, curation is helping you to add this extra level of relevance on top of those existing lists.
Give us an example.
So the example of the remote work is a very good one. So if you
Mm-hmm.
target companies that are remote, opening office or presence in, let's say, Africa or Asia, you want to know how many staff they have. This is very easy to get. You want to know that they are tech company, very easy to get. But if you want to know that they expanded somewhere, you don't have the data point available. If you want to know if they're remote first, you don't have the data point. So you need to do it manually. And that's where curation can add this level of sophistication. Basically, you will be very relevant because you've done your homework. And
Mm-hmm.
that actually spelled the difference when you send a cold email. I always say that a cold email is when you send an email and it's not done right. A good cold email will not sound like a cold email. It will sound super relevant, super legit, and people will thank you to sending this email. And I've seen it. Like people when I send a cold email, I have some responses like it's almost like they want to propose me, like they want to get married with me. They're very happy. And it was actually when I first started with cold email with Brandsfeed, I was sending a lot of emails. I had different strategies. And when people were asking me where they can put their credit card to get that research done, I knew I had something because cold email
Mm.
it's the worst channel to reach out to, right? Nobody likes receiving emails, but if they're relevant and people are happy because you're solving a problem they have and they're actually ready to pay, it means you actually have something. You have something valuable enough that as a stranger, you can reach out to stranger and they're still happy to pay you. Then you probably have some validation here,
Yeah,
and it
fair
works
enough.
best if you do some research first.
You were telling me a story that I really like, and I know that it's not necessarily applicable to everyone, but I think it helps be creative and understand the true power of what you've built. I think you had a tailor, so like a brick and mortar company, come to you, and they had these ideas of how to leverage your tool, and ultimately what it was, correct me if I'm wrong, but basically they provided you a list of leads that they got from Sales Navigator. They wanted like business people in Chicago, but to add a layer of research to it, you use like a an image, or like you used AI and image, well, what do you call it again, like you analyze the image of their LinkedIn profile, and you were saying, okay, well, if you're wearing a suit, we'll keep you because you're a relevant potential client. If you're not wearing a suit, we'll remove you from the list, and then we'll enrich the data by saying, hey, you've been in Chicago for over 15 years. Like there were all these data points that you were using so that each email was like, hey, and like I noticed you've been in Chicago for 15 years. I'm just setting up shop here and I'd love to get involved with people who are true veterans in the city. And by the way, like I nice tie on your LinkedIn profile or something like that. And I was like, I mean, I'm obviously like just not reciting it properly because it's been a while since you told me, but I love the idea, and he got really good response from that, right? If you're watching this and you're a B2B startup founder in Southeast Asia struggling to grow your startup, we have a whole community of founders just like you, and on a weekly basis we discuss strategies and growth hacks. We'd love to have you amongst us. Feel free to join at nextbigwave.co or find the link in the description. I'll see you there.
So basically, yes. So basically, the idea of doing that type of research, you don't want to be creepy or like, I checked you out and I know exactly what you're wearing. The concept here is you want to show that you care enough and you want the prospect to feel special, right? So when and I've seen people doing that terribly wrong. You know, when you reach out to someone with the by email and you say, "Oh, I've seen you click on that page," or I've seen you visit this webinar, or I've seen, oh, you clicked on, you shared a post, or you commented this post, like you show to their face that you're creepy and you're stalking people, right? This is bad. Like if you have intelligence, yeah, you should use it, but you should not show or tell them how you know that they are interested. This is wrong. This is wrong. You should show them that you cared enough you've done your homework, and use that without saying it. So in the case of that particular individual that actually using our tool to target people in Chicago, the first filter he actually used using Kuration was to remove female. You know, it
Okay.
sounds like so simple, but people, I mean, women are not buying suits. They are, but not tailor-made, and probably not in the same quantity of men. And SalesNav, they don't let you filter by gender, right? It sounds like such a basic data point, but they don't, right? And obviously, if you want to optimize your campaign, you want to remove all the female. So that was the first thing, and the
Right.
second thing. So there are a few other data points, but the profile picture, the idea was to show the person that he actually checked their profile and he knows exactly what they're wearing, but not in a judgmental, like, oh, I've seen you're wearing a tie, or you're not wearing a suit. It's more like, I checked you out. I checked you out.
Right.
I know who you are. I've done my research. And people, and especially if you sell like bespoke services, and this will apply to marketing services, digital agencies. If you want to look or sound like you cared enough to have done your homework, research is very important. Very important. If you send a very generic email, and it doesn't sound personalized, and personalization is not like their team. I noticed your LinkedIn profile. You have like a three common friends with me. This doesn't work. Like it's so lame. Actually, when I received those type of email, and I'm sure you receive tons of those, it's ridiculous. Sometimes I
Yeah.
receive like, "Oh, I love what you do," and I love to respond, "Oh yeah, what do I do?" And the
Yeah.
answer is so terrible every time. So I know they haven't checked. But the funny thing is, you can actually automate that with Kuration. You can check all the website on the list, and you can ask, what is this company doing? And you have this snippet, you have this
Mm-hmm.
variable that you can use in the cold email. So I could reach out to you team and I should do it as a test to show you what the AI can do. And basically with Kuration, you can turn any data point, any data on a company or person into a variable for your sequence. And we talk a lot about cold email, but I want to be clear here. Research is not just good for outreach, code outreach. It's also useful for inbound. If you have a lot of inquiries on your form, on your website, you have a lot of noise, you need curation. You need to curate and remove all the leads that are not relevant. Otherwise, your sales professional, your sales team is going to be very busy doing calls that are actually not qualified at all. So it's just a waste. If you do paid ads, same on LinkedIn, you can target people and companies. So you can have a highly curated list of 500, 1,000 individuals on LinkedIn. You can target them individually. So only those people could see your ad. I could have an ad running and it's just for you team. So only you will be seeing this ad. Very targeted.
Do they allow dynamic ads? So meaning like or programmatic more like on LinkedIn. I haven't really used LinkedIn ads. Do you know if they allow you to have a programmatic element to the advert? Meaning if you were targeting this person and that person, they would get slightly different ads?
No, 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 they don't.
No.
But
Okay.
maybe that's the next move for them. You can send personalized videos where it's really customized. So maybe at
Mm-hmm.
some point the ads itself will be personalized. But the fact that you can actually target people, very specific people, I think this by itself, I think is very powerful.
Yeah, I didn't know that actually. So you have to upload a CSV with the LinkedIn profiles, or how does that work? Yeah.
Yep, 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 yep.
Okay.
You can also do retargeting. Now, from what I heard, it's very expensive. So I'm not running ads myself. Right? I work with
Mm-hmm.
a few agencies, and I have a blog post coming soon where basically I recommend a few people to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I think it's one of LinkedIn channel, LinkedIn ads got very bad reputation because it's very expensive to run. But
Absolutely.
because
Yeah.
very few people are running ads, and you know the way it works in growth, the channel that works is the channel that nobody is using, right? So right now
Yeah.
everybody is using social selling. You'll see that at some point it will be very hard to make those channels work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cold email, same. It's very saturated. So you have to stand out. Growth works when you do things differently. And that's why when you read playbook of people are sharing some hacks that they've done 5, 10 years ago, uh, obviously if you're reading this, it means like a
It's
million
too
people
late.
read the same thing. It's too late.
Mm-hmm.
It's too late. And this is the most exciting part of the job. That's why I really love it. Creativity is super important, right? You have to come
Absolutely.
up with your own growth hacks if you want them to work, right? And the tool like Curation really let creative people to come up with, um, yeah, those people, the creative people, they've been kind of stuck because they didn't have access to those tools. Only engineers had access to those tools to turn ideas into actual products and hack. Now
Mm-hmm.
with no code and tools like Curation, which I actually put in the category of no code tools, it really free up that creative spirit that people who are not coming from an engineering background have. I'm not saying engineers are not creative. Um,
But it's not limited to engineers, is what you're saying. Now anyone can access it. Yeah, yeah. I think it's great, and unfortunately, with that type of power, uh, you need to have that creativity. And I think you're building a chatbot as well for people who unfortunately don't have that creativity. You're kind of guiding them through the steps. You're saying, "Hey, this is what your goal is. Here's what I have access to. These are suggestions on what you should maybe do."
so the chat is not necessarily to help people who have no creativity. I think everybody has a creativity. I mean, I rarely met people who are not creative. They just forgot. They just
Mm-hmm.
forgot that they are. Um, Especially those tools like SalesNav, and they kind of force you to think in a frame, right? With all
Mm.
those boxes and filters that you have. But it's the same thing when you have a software, you're on your laptop, and obviously you're stuck with the tools that are available on your laptop, right? But now if I let you think with a piece of paper, you'll see,
Mm-hmm.
you will think, it's like there's no border. It's this, when you have a whiteboard, you're always more creative, always. And so the idea of the chat is, again, you have no filters. It's just a chat. So it's a clean white piece of paper where you share your problems, you share what you want to do, or even the chat can give you some hints on what is possible to do, and will actually force you to think by yourself, helping you identify like potential data point, things you could try, um, and and really free up your creativity. So it's more like a co-pilot, really.
Right. Well, I'm excited to test it because you're right. Like, I notice my creativity goes down as I spend too much time in front of my laptop. But when I go for a walk, this is when my ideas come, and I'm like, well, there's a dichotomy between me being on a walk and not wanting to be on my phone and all these ideas that I want to execute, and I can't wait to go back to the office. So, you've been a growth hacker for quite a while, and I'm curious to know if you had like one growth hack that you've done in the past that was like the best or that you've heard of and you want to experiment with. Like, what would that be?
It's a good question. So it's funny that you actually label me as a growth hacker because maybe that's what I am, but I've never actually labeled myself as a growth hacker. Just more like a problem solver. And I think growth hacker, people are problem solvers and they want to have growth, and they're
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurs or sales, and they leverage anything that is available around them to find channels, build channels, and that works. What type of hack? But I mean, cold email is not really a hack as a channel. Um, I can show you one. It was funny. It was actually more like an accident.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the most successful cold email campaign I launched is it was a PS C attach the PDF, but I did not put a PDF in that. It was many years
Mm-hmm.
ago when you can still send like an attachment, but I forgot to attach that PDF, and I had so many people responding to my email, like I think it was like 30%, telling me, "Oh, you forgot to attach the PDF." People were so happy to tell me I forgot something. Um, and then I actually launched several campaigns where, on purpose, I didn't attach the PDF because I knew it will actually engage the conversation. They will say, "Oh, there's no PDF," because
Mm-hmm.
they were so happy to spot the mistake. It's a bit like some people, they've seen a typo on your presentation and they're so happy to send you to tell you there's a typo, and they
Mm-hmm.
think they're winning, but they're not because now they engage in the conversation and they're more likely to respond. And what you want, it's what I tell to all the people who try cold email. They try to package everything into one email. Like they think
Mm-hmm.
they're gonna send an email and they're gonna have a sale. Wrong. You send the first email. All you want to do is to start a conversation. Even if it's a no or no, I'm not interested, it's okay because now you have another chance to say, "Oh, but I've done my research and I really think you might be interested because A, B, C," and then you can actually turn that no into a yes. And so yeah, so I think I would say um, my well, it's not so
I
impressive.
love it. This is no, this is exactly what I mean. This is like the fact that it was an accident is even better, but that you understood that hey, there's this psychological thing behind this. I'm going to actually leverage that in future campaigns. And funny enough, I mean, I know a lot of people do that, but I often put a typo in one of my LinkedIn posts or video titles or something because I know someone's going to comment and I'm just hacking their engagement for free. And they think they're winning and I'm winning.
Exactly. So yeah, absolutely. It's just different game, different time horizons. And I think in growth in general, you want to try as many things as possible, and nobody knows what is going to work.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a science. It's not an art. It's both. So you really need to experiment a lot of things. And again, if you look at curation, all those data points could be variables. It could be angles. You see, for instance, if you don't know the gender of a person, of course you're not going to approach this, the email is going to be different, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of things you can the use cases, you can the LinkedIn post, and again, all of those, the content, the data that you have access to think strategically and what type of campaign can I run. Um, so it means you can
Mm-hmm.
really implement all the crazy ideas that you had in the past, but you could not develop them because it was too expensive. If you need to have
For sure.
engineers helping you gather the data, you need a data scientist to help you. You're not going to run as many.
The ROI is not there. Yeah, for sure.
You know.
One growth hack that I really like is something that we worked on together over the last few weeks. Like basically monitoring your competitor or people, actually, even better, KOLs who talk about your competition and monitoring any of their engagements and comments, and then piggybacking on top of that to reach out to the people who maybe commented positively or negatively about your competitor and start a conversation. Can you talk about sort of the results that you've been having with that campaign?
Extremely positive. And I wish I could share my screen and actually because on podcasts and on a lot of interviews on the internet, sometimes you're like, oh, those numbers are crazy. I don't believe it. I'm the first one
You,
now
you,
to
you
believe
can
a
share
lot
your
of things
screen
that
if you want.
I, I can share. But can you?
Absolutely, go ahead.
Cool. Because sometimes the numbers are just too good to be true. I had almost 30% positive response rate, reply rate, and it's
Mm-hmm.
almost 100% positive response rate on this type of campaign. So
Yeah, it's
it's
unreal.
just insane.
And that's like free targeting, because basically all we're doing is monitoring people talking about competitors or our competitors talking themselves and just hijacking all of their engagement.
So let me.
Yeah, you can share your screen, but like for anyone who doesn't really understand what we're talking about, basically there are tools, or you can do it manually, where you can monitor a certain number of accounts on LinkedIn or even competitors, and you can automatically sort of engage with their engagement. And in this case, you went after an email campaign, but you could do it on LinkedIn, etc. And because your engagement is so targeted and it's related to something about your competitor, the open rates are just unreal. And you said, well, let's see your response rate. You mentioned 30%. That's just for most people, they're looking at 3% for a happy campaign.
Yeah. So you see 200 leads, 24% reply, and this is not counting like the out of office, right? It's true
Mm-hmm.
response, right? And then 43 people said yes, I'm interested. Please send me
That's
the link to
crazy.
sign up. This is insanely good.
And this is just purely because of like extremely relevant targeting. And you don't need 10,000 leads. I mean, if you're getting 40, 50 responses, and you could keep running these campaigns, I guess this was a test, but we could be monitoring a lot more accounts and saying, hey, anyone and everyone who talks about a competitor or even our competitor, let's just go after all of their engagement that is within our ICP and start a campaign that is pertinent to what has been said, and you get those types of results. So that's one of my favorite growth hacks these days. Other than the ones that are a little bit more gray hat with the LinkedIn followers and things like that, but there's a lot of cool stuff.
But you see, this is the type of channel hack that is working now. But I can see that in a few months or maybe a year or two, people will stop engaging on LinkedIn because they know they're gonna
They're
signal
being
to the entire
monitored.
world. Yeah, they know they're gonna receive a lot of cold email or outreach. Now, some people don't mind, but some people do. So when the hack happened, you can see that people also modify the way they behave, right?
Mm-hmm.
So right now it's working well, but I can see that in a few months or maybe a year it will stop to work as effectively as now. So
Yeah.
now is the time to do it.
But you'll always have signals. So I'm a big believer in signal based sales and figuring out signals and kind of leveraging them. People are not going to stop doing anything just because they feel targeted. I think maybe something will change, but ultimately there's always going to be signals. You just have to be listening.
You have to listen. And now the beauty of the technologies that we have access to is that we can really listen and watch
Mm-hmm.
anything, everything. So we don't
Mm-hmm.
have any, computing power limitation. Not just our brain, we can have LLMs that can actually look at all those signals and tell us if it's a go or no. Also, just going back to the previous hack, you should not tell people that you've seen the engagement on the post. If you tell them, hey, I've seen you engage with this post, please buy my solution, or I assume you are interested in my solution, I don't think it's going to work as effectively as what I shared. Because now I haven't shown you the campaign, but I'm not telling them that I've seen they engage with that post.
How do you engage? How do you start the conversation?
I just pitch my solution the same way I pitch traditionally. And then, interestingly enough, I should actually look at how many times they ask me. But usually they ask me, they say, oh, how do you actually know I'm trying to buy these type of services, right? So they know I have some information that I'm not sharing, right? And usually I play nice. I tell them, hey, this is how I know, right? But maybe I should not tell them. Just say, have done my research.
Yeah, and I used a certain tool called Kuration.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which I've done, right? I filter a bit, get the email, trying to personalize, be relevant, all of that. But I'm fairly convinced that we should not tell people where the information is coming from. At least when you the first email, I think it's a red flag.
Feels too sketchy. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
it's like you're playing cards. You're playing cards, but you show the card you have.
Yeah. They're already qualified. You don't need to add a reason for it.
Yeah, and this is kind of unspoken rules. If you send them an email, if it's relevant, they know it's relevant. They're gonna feel it because they engage. In that case, they ask for the lead magnet, right? So it's a very strong signal. You don't have to show them in the face again.
Yeah.
They will if you target the right person for whatever reason, whatever signal you use, they will feel you have some magic trick that somehow you knew that they were the perfect ICP. Don't break the magic, Don't, because it's actually simple. Those signals are actually, when you tell the truth, the facts, it actually kind of removes some of the magic. It's not rocket science. Anyone can do it, right?
Yeah.
So if you tell them it's just it's kind of you spoil the magic of this hack.
I agree. Good stuff, man. So are you fundraising right now? I'm just kind of trying to gauge where you're at, right, with the company.
Not fundraising right now. Might at some point. I think we haven't really cracked the product market fit yet. I'm convinced we are very close, but not yet. But we will eventually.
So if anyone wanted to learn more about Kuration, what's the best way to reach you?
If you sign up, there's a intercom chat. You can reach me there. I'm doing the support 24/7 with the pop-up notification on my phone. So and I will respond.
Awesome. I'll definitely be adding the link to the description of this video, but it's Kuration.ai with a K, not a C. Really cool app. I use it quite often. I think it's got legs. When you say this, you haven't necessarily reached product market fit. I think, like you said, you're very close because I use it and it's relevant to me and to everyone I introduce to. Maybe there are a few tweaks here and there, but overall, I think you're very close.
Yeah, I mean the reason I'm really gonna carry on this journey is because I see the response that I've got from people. They're really excited. Now, it's not delivering 100% of the promises, and it's still a few technical challenges. But the fact that it's no code, it's easy to use compared to other providers out there. There's a demand for a simple tool to achieve complicated things. And the chat is a plan trying to be as simple
Right.
And also Asia focus. We haven't talked about that on the podcast, but there's also like the fact that we try to be looking at Asia compared to other providers. It's also a big part of our plan.
Okay. Fair enough. Yeah, well, I'm excited to kind of, keep track of this story on the podcast and offline in our conversations. I really believe in this product a lot. I believe in you as a founder. And yeah, I'm just excited for the future for you. And thanks so much for being on the podcast. That's going to be the episode for today. And, catch you guys on the next one.
Thank you.